today. My name is Ruby Miseda. I am the founder and a psychologist at Africa Jipende Wellness, and I'm joined by Ashley and Kamau, who are members of
Hi.
Jipende Wellness. And
Yes.
I've walked with them together, and the journey was amazing. Thank you guys for allowing me to walk with you guys. And thank you for
Thank
allowing me
you.
to have this discussion with you. I think it's important for us to normalize the conversation about mental health.
Yeah.
So today our topic of discussion is the consequence of African parenting technique. This is a conversation that needs to happen. I guess what I'm starting to discover is the concept of mental health and how we can make it relatable with our experience. And I've noticed that when we talk about mental health, people don't find it relatable if we say signs and symptoms, but I hope our conversation can make it more relatable. And because you guys have worked and done the program with me, and we've had conversations before. So we can have this conversation with the audience, and hopefully they can be able to learn and take some notes about your own personal experience.
Yeah.
So Kamau wrote an article that is on our website that talks about his experience or his observation of being raised in an African household. And the article is Dear African Parents and Child. So hopefully you guys can read it in your free time. And we'd like to just have a little discussion. Ashley, could you please introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are?
Hi guys. So my name is Ashley Simiyu, and I just finished college for campus. Yes. So yeah, I'm a member of Africa Jipanda Wellness. I did it in I did 2019, and it was a really beautiful, a lot of emotion and experience. But I'm so glad that, um, I worked with Ruby all through, and I love the experience, and I just love the new me right now. I can say that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Kamal, can you tell us a little bit about you? You've been on our platform before,
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on again. Maybe to those who don't know who you are, you can share a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys.
Now, and I went through the gender wellness program, self-development program. It was in 2019. I think 2019, 2020. At
Yeah.
2020, I did 15 months, and it was really nice. I came out better. Before, I had a lot of issues, but afterwards, I'm good. I'm good. I'm a writer. I keep animals. I love animals. That's basically it.
Thank you so much, Kamal, for sharing. So, Kamal, I do have a couple of questions for you because I remember me and Ashley, we were having a meeting and she was telling me about an article that she read about parenting techniques and how she related with it. And obviously, I went back and I reread it. And one of the things that struck me the most, though we walked together, but this is just your personal experience, is the concept of African parents' marriages being toxic and how it actually impacts how they parent their children.
They
Mm,
really are. They really are.
yeah.
And Ashley, you said that you related a little bit about the concept of being a good child, and Kamal talks about the good child as being a survival technique, and
Yeah.
you are a firstborn daughter, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And it comes with a lot of challenges, honestly, because like you just find yourself like somehow a parent to your siblings as well. So you have to like have like, perfect morals. So because these people are looking up to you, and and your parents expect the best as best, they have to be like perfect. Because that is the word that has been used around this house, especially to me. So you have to be like perfect. If you make anything wrong or if you make any wrong choices, it's like, you know, harsh punishment. And those things, I feel like at some point someone can just talk to you as a friend or like a friend and be like, you know what, you did this is wrong. Instead of being like, I'll beat you or just throwing threats at you for, these small things that you do. So yeah, that is what I
Yeah,
can
that's
see in the first one.
yeah. And Kamal, you're not a firstborn, are you?
Mm.
So how is your experience not being a firstborn, but being in a household raised by African parents?
Really complex because I might not be a first one, but me and my sister have an age difference of around 8 to 7 years. So I'm basically like she moved out way before I was even in my teens. So I can say I was the first one in some way, but it's really complex in the way that one child does not get the same version of the parent the other child gets. So you can be in the same household, you may be siblings, but you get two versions of the same parent. So it's also tricky. It depends on how you relate with each other.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Like as they talk about that, there's different parenting exposure for different children. And also, I guess you're also a man. So what is your experience being having such a huge age difference and also being raised in an African household as a man?
It's bittersweet. There are the good moments, then there are the not so good moments. As a man, there are some things parents are more lenient on you, but they are not as lenient on the other person, especially if it's a girl. So for me, it was nice growing up. It wasn't all nice, but there was some very good experience. But coming up to my teen years, that's where I can say a lot of trouble started.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Ashley, what is your experience despite being a firstborn and you're a young lady now? What is your experience, your female experience being raised in an African household?
Ooh. um, there's quite a lot I can say. Sometimes you come to realize you're like, I wish I was a guy at some point. How would my parents treat me? But sometimes I am meant to be strong, you know, for my siblings. At the same time, I'm still seen as a child, whereby there's some privileges I'm not like allowed to have and stuff like that because I am a girl. So it's very confusing to some extent because at some point you're seen like you're meant to be this strong woman, at the same time you are this fragile lady, and you're just like, okay, so where, you know, where what is meant to happen with me? Because I think I think so, without confusion, it just brings all this anger or resentment towards your parents, which it's not sitting well sometimes. Yeah, so yeah, that's what I can say about being a firstborn daughter.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that both of you have also different experiences, right? But I guess
Yeah.
people can probably relate because we do have men and we do have women online. But I think what also struck me, Kamau, is when when you were writing the article, I guess it was also from your own experience and seeing other people's experiences. And you spoke about how African
Hmm.
marriages are on the rocks. Could you please explain to us what you observed?
Okay, from the article, I observed that African parents, it's not very easy for them to divorce. So the relationship might be toxic, but they won't go their separate ways. So they'll try and stick it out. What does is it creates a very unhealthy environment for the children. So if you're growing up and you see your parent being abusive towards the other parent, most likely you'll end up being abusive yourself. And also, there are also healthy relationships in African households. But the thing is, there's also dysfunction in that, especially if your parents grew up during the 50s and 60s. They can give you everything except emotional safety. They do not give us the space to be emotional, to express our feelings. And I think that's one of the major issues, because you grow up playing a role. Then when the parent isn't in the picture, you realize you do not know yourself.
Yeah,
Well, that's true. That's honestly true.
that's so true.
Yeah. Ashley, what is your opinion about that? Have you also observed something very similar?
Oh God, yes. I have, of course. Um, it just it's crazy how, like, sometimes if you look at it, it's crazy how sometimes, like, your parents want to talk to you and say, you did this, and, like, they're trying they want you to listen to them, yeah. But when it comes to you speaking how you really feel about that specific thing, or about, how you're feeling, they really do not listen to you. It's always either their way or I
The
don't know.
high,
Yeah.
the
So they
high.
don't really listen to you. And it's so annoying, I can say, because me as a firstborn, I feel like I'm meant to have a voice. But then at some point, I'm not being heard, right? So what does it make me? Like, I thought, being a firstborn, I'm able to say a couple of things that, I don't want them to do on my siblings. But at some point, I'm just like, you know what? Since no one is listening to me, then that's fine. I'll just try as much as possible to talk to my siblings so that they can understand, like, if this and this happens, you just, calm down, don't like lash out because it's gonna cause more issues. Because if you lash out, your parents are gonna lash out, and then, there's not gonna be an understanding over there. So, I just try to talk to them so that they can understand and they can be more calm with certain situations. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And one of the things I remember, Kamau, you had written in your article, you said that when confrontation happens, the children being raised in this household become emotionally detached, and it's very hard for them to express their emotions. Something similar that Ashley is talking about her experience. Could you please tell us a little bit about that too?
So what happens is that during the not scuffle, let's say, in every household, there's always friction. If it gets to a point where whatever you say isn't being heard and interpreted the right way, you start to learn to play a role. You know what needs to be done to make sure that interaction between the child and the parent is as smooth as possible. That's why people start lying. And once you start doing,
Yes.
and when someone does something to you consistently and so good and for so long, you start doing it to yourself.
Yeah.
So if they neglected you emotionally, you'll start neglecting yourself. So what happens is, as a child, you'll grow up knowing your emotions don't matter. You'll grow up knowing whatever you feel, you have to bury it inside. That's why when
Yeah.
people start tasting freedom after the parent has left the picture, that's why a lot of dysfunction comes out.
Yeah.
True. True. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. And
Oh,
yeah.
but I feel like sometimes, parents should also, like, there's a time I had someone say, like, parents are always right. And in my head, I'm just like,
They also
you
say
sure?
that some child is to be seen and not to be heard. So
Yeah.
it's there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like we're over here trying to break that generation curse or something, whereby, the parents is not always right. I feel like we learn from each other,
Yeah.
and parents
True.
should accept it. But they just so, I think, because their parents did that, they're doing that to us,
Yeah, it's a
and we are
cycle.
trying to break it. Yeah, we're trying to break it, but it's not easy to break it because they are still stuck on that mentality of, the parents is always right, parents is always right. But I feel like we should just, the way a parent would be like, respect me, even you, I feel like a parent should respect their daughter or their son or their child in that, with that respect, without mutual respect, it will create a different relationship, which is more healthy and which will be also like it will go to an extent where a child would be able to open up to the parent and tell them, this and this is happening mentally or, emotionally or physically. And, a parent should be able to understand that and then things can move forward. And, if a child needs help, the parents will be there. And yeah, so I feel like we are trying to break that, but it's not easy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, if for the African parent, I feel like shouldn't wait until the child is in their teens or in their adult life to try and make the relationship better, because you cannot be with me in adulthood what you failed to be with me in childhood. If you aren't my
yeah,
friend as a child, I won't be your friend as an adult, because that
true.
it sets the tone. As the parent is the first interaction you'll have with the world as a child.
Yeah,
So if that parent isn't doesn't give you a positive picture, it sets the tone towards everything else you interact with in life, and that's really hard. So a lot of parents need, from the formative years, let's say from when you're a newborn, they should
yeah,
treat you right,
true.
honor your emotions, and everything else will flow.
True.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. That is true. And one of the things I've started to learn, like working with members and creating this program, is how people think that they come from good backgrounds. And I've noticed when they say, "Oh, I come from a good family," and the good family is that my parents provided for me financially, my parents put food on the table. But when you dig deeper into their story, you start to realize that they were emotionally neglected. So I did have a conversation with a couple of parents, and I asked them, this is what's happening with your child, or this is what's happening with your adult child, and they're in utter shock because they didn't realize that their experience that they had as a child, they're doing the same thing. And they said that I don't have a blueprint. You guys are from a different generation. Our generation
Right?
is so different, and it realizes that it's like from generations we have emotionally neglected ourselves, or we've raised children to be deputy parents, or I've noticed even with sons they become emotional husbands to their mothers, just because of the disparity within the parents, between their relationship with their partners in their marriage.
Yeah.
And then they encourage us, and I realize as African people, there's something Kamari wrote, is that the whole concept of beating the child, and even me, many years back when I was a teenager, I was like, I'll cane my kids because they'll turn out straight. But that was a bad mentality. And I
Right.
remember you saying that we idolize the toxic behavior in African parent-child relationships.
Yeah.
Can I
And
add
Yeah.
into,
Yeah.
yes,
okay, let me speak from my experience.
yeah.
I feel like our parents raised us to survive in a world that no longer exists. And I feel like most of the people right now are raising children to survive in a world that won't be there in a couple of years. So we need to move with the times, and we also need to learn to change our perception of the world. Because from my experience, both my parents think that they've achieved what they didn't have when they were growing up. My mother grew up in a rural setup, so she was like, none of my children will do manual labor, and she achieved that, and she sees it as a great achievement. None of our children ever did any manual labor. On the other hand, my father was like, a little work ain't bad, and he was like, his parents were very controlling, so his approach was to just let us be, and he has achieved that. None of his children went through what he went through, and none of my mother's children has gone through what she went through. They are happy with that. But when they came together, they created an environment that neither of them understood and neither of them had been through. So it was hard for them to relate with her. And it's I feel like one of the greatest disconnects a parent has with a child, because we do not understand them and they do not understand them. And one thing that is really upsetting is our parents have deluded themselves into believing that they know us, and they don't. Because especially once a child goes into high school, they start coming into their own. That's where you learn to relate with people outside your comfort zone. You learn to who you are, what you like, and you have to hide that life from your parents. So you grow up like living a double life. Your parent, the image you give your parents, and who you truly are. And we need to get to a point where you can show your parents who you truly are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. The question is, are they ready to accept this new person that is their child?
Wow.
Even if
Me, what I can say from my end is, as much as I'm trying to be like an individual, because I'm like as I'm growing up, I'm just realizing that I need to live a life like I define myself as me, Ashley, and not like, the daughter of so and so. So like with that, I came to realize, as much as I'm staying in my parents' home, it's also difficult for them to accept it that I am becoming an individual. So they think I'm rebelling. They think I'm developing an attitude. They think, I am not the same person, the same, and I'm just like, it's me, I want to be stressed by you people. I'm beyond that right now. And I'll just, hoping one day I'll be able to come out of this house and just be myself. Because yeah, it's not easy for them to accept it. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah,
yeah, true.
yeah. And
Mm.
somebody has written here that it's Stacy. It's not easy to show your parents who you truly are because of fear of judgment and disappointing them. And that's something I've
Yeah.
noticed, this punishment system and relationship with fear based on parents' control over their over your life, yeah. And then
Mm-hmm.
in the long run, it doesn't really help. It actually affects your mental health. So you start to feel very sad. You start to have a lot of anxiety, and anxiety is perceived threat, and the threat is based on the feeling of fear and worry, because maybe you were raised in an environment where your parents had very unpredictable behavior or emotions or reactions, and it does really transcend into your relationship with the world, and that becomes very difficult. So I noticed that if somebody wants to live their really live the life that they want, they really have to break that fear or that attachment that their parent is going to control their every move. I think we've lost Ashley.
To add on to that, I feel like our parents haven't yet gotten to a point where they can accept the decisions we make without them thinking that we failed in life or we settled for less. And I think that's the greatest problem, because you can be flourishing in life, but your parents will make you feel like you failed, because you haven't gone in line with what they had envisioned for you. And that's really one of the major issues that causes friction between the parent and the child.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And there's something, Kamal, you had written over here where you said,
Yeah.
so there is this thing in human cognition that we are very resilient, and our parents are small children, which is natural. We are born tiny and very helpless and would die without parental care. This means that attachment is more important than safety for small children. Could you please elaborate more about that statement?
Okay. As a newborn and as a small child, survival is at the top of that list. So whoever feeds you, clothes you, shelters you, you are reliant on them.
Yeah.
So even if whatever they do to you isn't positive, you'll have to take it because survival. You have to survive.
Yeah.
So you're attached to them. I don't know if you're understanding me.
Yes, I do understand you. And the interesting thing is that even with this conversation we're having, and remember we used to talk about attachment style, and the attachment style is really nurtured when on how your parents respond to your emotions. And one thing I'm starting to notice is that a lot of us African people suffer from emotional wounds because we had to be raised in an unpredictable environment, and we had to suppress our own emotions to cater for our parents' emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's true because, sometimes when you look at it, you tend not to give a lot of information just based on how your parents are going to react. So I feel like that is one of the things why you consider your parents' reaction, I mean, emotions or feelings over yours. And, it's it's not the best thing, but you're just doing it to survive. You're just doing that to survive and yeah, to avoid any more chaotic or any judgment from that. So yeah, I feel like we do consider our parents' feelings more than ours. Just mhm.
And
Yes,
subconsciously, we note down every negative experiences we've gone through. Subconsciously, there's a list we keep. At the back of our minds, there's a list we keep. I did this, and this was the reaction. I did this, and this was the reaction. So it sets down the template to every other interaction you'll have going forward. So if you were truthful and the reaction was negative, you won't be truthful again. You'll lie. You'll try to make them feel better so that the interaction is shorter and more positive. And that's where over the years you hide so much. There's so much pent up anger, there's so much pent up hurt that it gets to a point you can't do it anymore. And that's where a lot of parents have issues with their children because you can't do it anymore. You can't pretend to be who you are not. You can't keep hiding. That's why people say, my child changed. They didn't change. You never knew them from the beginning. You never knew how your actions affected them. And that's really sad.
Yeah.
it is sad. It is. And if we look at it in terms of mental health, right? What I've noticed is that people even struggle to realize that, okay, I'm burnt out, I'm feeling this way because the experience in their childhood was just continuously following them, and it's in the back of their mind. So if they, for example, take a day off, they just remember, oh, I'm being lazy, because that's what they were labeled if they didn't get an A star or something. So they're overworking themselves and they're becoming workaholics as adults, or they don't even realize that they've been sad and they've been carrying pain for 25 years, and then they bring it into their relationships with other people, or they get triggered where somebody would say a statement, and in the back of their mind they just remember how their parents spoke to them, and then all that rage comes out on this other person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
True.
That's insane.
It's really sad, honestly. It's
It
sad.
is. It is. It is. It's just you.
What do you guys
Um,
think we need to do to change this whole trajectory? Like,
I feel like for me, from my end, I just try, you know, to push, push, push until they'll eventually give up and just accept. I'm doing this for myself and at the same time for my siblings because I want it to be easier for them as well, you know. So it's gonna be a struggle, but I feel like where I stand right now, I kind of like know myself and um, I'm able to understand myself. So I will try to push that to so that my parents could actually understand like this is not like a different person. This is just who I have been, and I'm just
Yeah.
growing and I'm trying to be like an individual, not your daughter. And hopefully you guys will accept it. If you don't, I'll proceed like that until you accept it. And hopefully with that, they'll be able to, talk to their friends as well who are having the same problem with their daughters or their kids. And hopefully they'll, I feel like, as parents, when they talk to each other, they are able to understand each other more and it will work on how, their friends parent their children and hopefully it will proceed like that, like that, like that. So for me, that is what I feel like I am going to do or I'm still doing. Yeah.
It's a gradual process, and
It
it will take
is.
time. Mm, don't be in a rush. It will take time because
Yeah.
I feel like it, our parents didn't realize that they were being who they are complaining about years ago. Because I feel like the same issues we are having with our parents, they had with theirs. And
Yeah.
it is a really self-aware person to look at the situation and see like, I'm repeating what was done onto me and to correct it. And some people are never strong enough to right the wrongs of the past. And we have to be there for them to show them, to
Hmm.
make them feel like you're doing wrong. It isn't supposed to be this way. Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Kamal,
Oh
there's
yeah, I've
something.
seen oh okay. Ruby, please.
No, there was just something just to add on what Kamal was saying that he wrote. He said that
Hmm.
unlearning is uncomfortable, listening is difficult, relearning is sorry. You said relearning is especially smart, but we have to do it. So let me read it again. Unlearning is uncomfortable, listening is difficult. Those 2 points. I just wanted to know what you meant by that.
Look at it this way. Our parents didn't have the knowledge we have today. They didn't have the exposure we had. We've grown up in the age of internet, so we're able to see what my parent does isn't what's happening around me. But our parents grew up thinking what they went through is what everybody went through and what everybody should go through. That's their thinking. So getting to a point where you have to unlearn all that, something that was instilled in you from childhood, something that you've gone into your adult life knowing. Now trying to unlearn that and to teach yourself that isn't the right way. That's really hard. It's really, really hard, and it takes a really strong person to do it. So unlearning is very hard. It's really, really hard, especially if you're smart. It's really, really hard. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Oof.
That was deep.
That was yeah, yeah. So Kamal, I was looking at this part for when you're 25 and then you start maybe earning or and your parents kind of expect something from you.
Yeah, it's something I've
What like
noticed.
yeah,
Okay, go on. The question, I'll say it all.
like what do you think like should happen for that to be able to, you know, be stopped? Because I feel like, as a child, you're growing up and you, you're grateful for everything your parents have done, right? But does
Yeah,
it really mean that you have to give them something because they've said so? Am I just, it's mostly based on like how you really feel. Because I feel like most of people, like I don't know what, I saw some YouTuber, right? Or some people just go outside and decide to know they work, and then majority of the time they're spending the money on the family and not on them.
true.
So I feel like, this money is for you. You're the one who worked hard for this. Them, they had their time.
Yeah,
Them, they had the time. They were able to get their own money and, maybe used it on or
for you or for them, they'll make you haven't done much. And I feel like as a society, we need to rectify that. We shouldn't, a child shouldn't be expected to do so much for the parent. Like, once
yeah.
I've left the nest, it's time for me to explore, to figure my way. It's time, I shouldn't be trying to achieve your unfulfilled dreams as a parent. And that's really wrong. And I feel like not only in the African setup, also in, as black people in the world, because I saw it was a clip on YouTube where they asked NBA players to read the text messages from their people. So for the white NBA players, all the text messages were their family reaching out to ask if they were doing all right. For the black NBA players, the parents were asking for money, the siblings were asking for money. Everyone was asking for something. So I feel like there's too much expected of us, and I feel like it
Mm,
im- it it gets in the way of us living life to the fullest.
yeah. So it's the expect it's
Really,
quite a lot.
yes. And our parents have figured out a way. If they fail to achieve something during their lifetime, they'll try to achieve it during yours. So if your parent wanted to build a 10-bedroom house, a mansion, and they weren't able to do it, they'll say, "Oh, the money I would have done, I would have used to do that. I spent it educating you. So in turn, you have to do it," and that's really wrong.
Yeah, I feel like with that kind of like, comment where like I did this for you, it makes you feel guilty.
Yeah, yeah,
And you're like, God, I'm letting them down and then and it puts as at the same time it puts like a lot of pressure on
yeah,
yourself. So you tend to do like I feel like people tend to do a lot of things, a lot of jobs that are not making them happy
yeah,
just because of that pressure. You're like, okay, fine, I'm still some earning money and maybe I'm sending money home and at least I'm making my parents proud. But is it really for you? No.
yeah.
So people tend to make bad decisions with time just because of some comments or expectations of their parents.
Yeah. That's really
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And the whole guilt thing is just also not good.
No, it
Because I
isn't.
feel like as parents, as much as they provide financial things and materialistic things, they should also be there for you emotionally,
Yeah, true.
which is more important. Because, like you said, your social life started with your family.
Yeah,
And these are the same people you expect to trust, but no, as you grow up with time, you don't really trust them with information. And with that, you just start drawing away from them. And, it's just, it's sad.
extremely, extremely. Like right now,
It's so
there's
sad.
African parents are realizing that they do not have good relationships with their children. Because once you leave home and you find a space for yourself, you won't be able to let them back in because you do not enjoy the experience they gave you. So you grow up
Yeah,
and cut ties with because you feel like you're better off without them.
yeah, yeah. It's very
Yeah,
true.
that's true. So Kamau and Ashley, thank you guys so much for sharing your experience. We'll try and do
Yeah,
this again and talk further about like probably do another 3 more lives based on this topic because I do know it's broad and we can have a
It's
conversation
very
more about
broad.
it. Yeah, because what I've noticed is that because as African people, we have our tradition, we have our religion, we have our gender roles that really affects the way we are raised, right? And how
Hmm.
we understand our emotions. So hopefully, like we can continuously talk about this topic because this is where a lot of people struggle with their mental health, isn't it?
yeah,
I feel
true.
like this is the root of it
Yeah,
mostly.
Yeah. Yes, it's most
Mm.
definitely the root of it. And I think if somebody doesn't really understand their emotional needs or understands their emotional wounds, how are they supposed to seek assistance? But my question is, as mental health professionals, how can we cater towards Africans' mental health if we are such diverse people, you know? If we are, you know, if we have our identity is so broad with our tradition, you know, religion, gender roles, also social class, economic social class, and also how we socialize with our friends. So we're so broad, and understanding our emotions in those areas is something that I guess we can talk more about. But I guess we can leave it here, and we'll discuss on another
Oh,
day. Yeah,
Ruby, I have a question. Yeah.
yeah.
Have you ever gotten a chance where like a full family wants to talk, to do therapy actually?
Yeah, I have. I've had a couple of cases.
Mm-hmm. So it's
But
possible.
it's possible. An interesting factor, what I've noticed is sometimes one parent could be very supportive and very start to become more aware and learn from their mistakes, while the other parent just shuts down, so makes the whole situation very frustrating. But then the other thing, as I
Mm,
mentioned, we are so diverse. We have our traditions, we have our culture, we have our religion, and all that really affects the person's core belief when it comes to things affecting behavior, right? So if
mm-hmm,
a
mm-hmm,
person is somebody who loves religion, right, they would say, but in our faith it says A, B, C, D. And this could be a highly educated person. On the other hand, we have a person, I start to realize that one of the parents is the one with the undiagnosed mental health condition, right? So it's,
mm,
but one thing I've noticed is that siblings are very supportive too. So mothers and siblings, they are more inclined. But there are some fathers who are there, but the others are so emotionally unavailable or emotionally numb.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yes. So, do you have any more questions you'd like to ask me?
No, if anyone maybe is watching, maybe if they have questions.
To add on to that, let me say you might be all grown up right now. You might be maybe 30, 40 years. But those experiences during childhood, they still affect you. We might deny them, but they still do. Like our love
Yeah.
language is based of what we were denied as a child. So it still affects us. So we shouldn't like bury our heads in the sand and say like, I came out fine. You
Yeah.
need to figure it all out. You need to understand why you associate with people the way you associate. Like if you might say like you do not like drama, but every relationship you have has drama. So you need to figure out the root cause. You need to look back and dig deep. You need to unpack everything and then start afresh. And I feel like that's the only way we can, with a clean slate, we can start fresh and we can do it right. And maybe our children will live a much better life than we did.
Thank you, Unleashed. Lee Unleashed. Thank you so much for tuning in.
So guys, what we want to do is we want to introduce group therapy. We do have a group therapy session that is going to start on the 29th of this month. Ashley and
Yeah.
Mao are also going to join. So we are putting up the posters soon, so you can book in. We do only have 7 slots, and we can have this conversation deeper for 2 hours, and hope that you guys can join us.
Yes, guys. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys on the 29th of October. So yeah.
Looking forward to it as well.
Yes, it will be exciting. We can talk further and have more conversations about where we left off here. And hopefully we can encourage the concept of group therapy sessions as a way of us coming together and normalizing the conversation while also identifying and emotionally healing.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Hi.
And,
Welcome back.
all right then. Bye.
Hi. Thank you. Bye bye.